are you ladies doing this morning? I hope you're all doing wonderful. If this is your very first time here, then welcome to my channel. My name is Dr. Michelle Daff, and if you're returning, welcome back. Thank you for being here today for another session in Finer Wives, where we talk about how you, my dear, can learn how to be a finer wife and bring femininity into your marriage for yourself, your husband, and your family. So I want you to go ahead and sit back, relax, grab something to drink, get something to write with, and let's talk about this. I want you ladies to know that this is valuable information, and I'm so thankful that so many of you are finding it helpful. I know a lot of you ladies have lived lives where you didn't have role models. Your father maybe wasn't around or did not teach you how to be a feminine woman. Maybe your mother didn't show things that allowed you to be able to emulate her. And you're having to kind of learn all of this from scratch. Many of you ladies want to get married in the future, and you want to learn how to be a more feminine woman and a finer wife for your husband. And then I have a lot of ladies who are also wanting to get married again. Maybe you've already been married and it wasn't successful, and this time you want to learn exactly what to do to make things flow smoother. And then of course, many of you ladies who are married and are just striving to renew your marriage and hoping to bring femininity, your true nature to your marriage, and hopefully allow God to take over all the things that you tried to do by yourself. And I'm so excited. I'm so happy that all of you are finding this beneficial and you're learning how to incorporate these things into your life. One thing I want you to know, my dear, that when God created you, He created you with perfection. He created you in His image, and He also created you with instruction in terms of how He wants you to live this life. And once you realize this and you start to really live in that, then you start to see how much easier things will flow when you do things in the order that it was assigned. God said to first love Him with all of your heart, and then to love your neighbor as yourself. And this translates right into your marriage, babe. A lot of these things that we're talking about are difficult, and we might find that we're having a really hard time just wanting to do it, naturally being able to do it. And that's because we are not loving our husbands as ourselves. We're not looking at our marriage as a reflection of how we should be also treating ourselves. And so it does become hard because maybe you don't think he deserves it, or you resent him, or things have happened. So it is going to take a mental shift. And maybe some of you ladies don't love yourselves, and that also will make it very difficult to love someone else. So before you even get started with this series, Finer Wives, I really want you to take a look at all of the other content I've created. Once you've watched those series, then you can return and watch Finer Wives. Then you'll have more of a foundation to be able to build up on. Otherwise, this information might be very difficult for you to implement because there has to be a transformation that's happened inside of you and an awakening that only God can put inside of you to see things for what they really are. So with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the first way that you can implement more femininity into your marriage. Now, a message from our sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people. It's a great place to take a course in a subject that sparks your interest to develop new skills. It's curated specifically for learning, meaning there are no ads, and they're always launching new premium classes so that you can stay focused and follow wherever your creativity takes you. I took a course by Nikelia Matthews Okome where she gave helpful tips on how to start your own podcast. She discussed everything from editing, finding a platform for your podcast, and publishing episodes. As you know, I have a podcast, so I'm always interested in learning new tips on how to make them more engaging. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description box will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare so that you can start exploring your creativity today. Thank you, Skillshare, for sponsoring this feminine session for all of these beautiful ladies. Ladies, it is okay to touch your husband. I know that we sometimes don't understand men and we think that they don't desire to be touched. They don't desire physical affection. But the truth is they do. They just maybe don't know how to ask for it, or they seek it sometimes in ways that are inappropriate. But when they love you, when they're with you, when they're married to you, they do desire it. And it's a way for them to know that you love them, that you desire them, that you care for them. And they lean on you as their wife, as that woman who has feminine energy to initiate that or be available for that. So as a finer wife, it's important for you to show your husband physical affection. When you walk past him, touch him. Touch his arms. Tell him how nice his arms look. You can play with his beard sometimes when you're speaking to him. Lean into him when you're talking. Make eye contact. Be present with him. Allow him to touch you. Don't stray away from him or just act like you don't like it when he touches you. That's going to make him feel rejected. And then when you want to touch him again, it's going to be a lot more difficult. It's okay to grab his arm sometimes and lead him into the bedroom. Or if you're out, say on a date or walking through the mall, just gently lean into him and allow him to put his arm around you or kind of loop your arm into his. When he met you and you first started dating and he fell in love with you, physical affection was part of it. He enjoyed being able to walk with you and hold your hand. And I know some women will act like they don't care about this and they don't want it, and I get that. But what I've always found is that when they do get it, they absolutely love it. But it is a lot easier to put up that shell and pretend like you don't want it, that you don't care about it, because you're not getting it. And a lot of times it's just being available for that, letting him know you desire it, and letting him know you desire him by constantly making a part of your lifestyle. He should be used to you touching him. And a lot of times, honey, we get sort of cold towards our husbands because maybe there's resentment. Maybe he did something yesterday and you're still holding on to it. So when he's in a good mood and he tries to come and talk to you and touch you, you're like, oh no, get away from me. And so he distances himself from you, and that causes problems, right? But I want you to know that as a finer wife, you're going to have to do things that are a little bit different than what you've been doing. If it makes you uncomfortable, think about that. Wonder, analyze, why is it making me uncomfortable? Am I hiding something? Some of us women are doing things on the low, on the sly that we shouldn't be doing. So if he's in our physical space, then we start to feel uncomfortable. Maybe you've been out smoking and he doesn't know you smoke, or he thought you quit. So you don't want him to kiss you because then he's going to smell it. Or maybe you've been drinking and same thing, right? So if you're hiding things, honey, it's going to be hard for you to want him to be around you because you don't want to get found out. We have to also think about the fact that when we stonewall like that, or our self-esteem is low, or we think we're fat and we're ugly and we smell, and why does he want to be around me anyway? What does he see in me? When you start talking to yourself like that and entertaining the thoughts the enemy puts into your mind, you open the door for problems in your life. That's what causes you not to touch your husband for months, not to have sex with him, not to desire him anymore. And it just keeps getting worse. The distance just keeps growing. And it's sad because that youthful spirit that he fell in love with, that joy that you naturally want to have as a woman, must not be there. But that can all be changed. You do have control over the way you behave, even if you've been doing something for a very long time. What you'll find is that men are very adaptable. And if your husband has been putting up with things for a very long time, chances are he's kind and he's loving and he's patient. And when you decide to take it back into your hands and tell the enemy enough is enough, and you start to change, you will see a change in your husband rather quickly. So I invite you to start taking that into consideration. And remember that nothing is promised. Nothing is guaranteed. You don't know the last day you're going to see him, the last moment you're going to have with him. Don't take anything for granted. He is your husband, and you giving him doses of affection, you being a finer wife who appreciates, admires, and loves her husband, is going to help him be a better man for himself and for you. Respect his role as your husband, his role as a man, his role that God assigned him in your marriage. Remember, my love, when it comes to marriage, it is your first ministry to the world. This culture pushes against that. This culture makes you think that you can make your own rules when it comes to your marriage. However, when God designed men and women, he designed us very differently. He also put a hierarchy in marriage in terms of his covering. And as a man, as your husband, his role is defined by how well you're able to adapt to it. If he is not able to implement the things that God has put on his heart to because of your resistance, that is going to cause serious damage to you. This is one of the most difficult concepts for women. We have a very hard time learning how to respect our husbands. And that is something that they are hardwired by their designer God to expect from you. They need to be respected in the home. And unfortunately, so many of us were not even taught what it means to respect a man. Maybe we want to, and we would totally do it if we knew how to, or if we knew what we were doing that was causing him to feel disrespected. It's very difficult to be able to do something when you have no knowledge of what you should do. And that's why it's so important. I'm going to make another video specifically on how to respect your man because it is the most important thing in your marriage. However, I'm going to touch upon a few of these concepts just to be able to give you a head start. First, you are respecting him for his role as the protector and the provider. If he's a father, you're also respecting his role as the father of your children. And that means that you are honoring that position. You are honoring the thoughts that he has. You are honoring the things that he's asking you to do for the family. You're not dismissing and disregarding things that he says. And you can sit up here and say, well, I shouldn't have to pander to his ego and it sucks that it's fragile, but that's not my problem. That is not loving your neighbor as yourself. You would want him to adapt to your need for love and your need for affection and your need for attention, even though he may not care so much about it. It's the same thing. You're being asked to do these things not because you just want to make him so happy, but because God asked you to, and that should be important to you. One way you can show respect to him for his role and his position is by showing gratitude, by actually expressing it, saying thank you for all the things that he does for you and your family. If he's out there working a job, putting in long hours, stressed out, trying to provide for his family, that's worth a thank you. And I'm not talking about a thank you here and there. I'm talking about a consistent thank you. It can be every day. What do you lose by showing him gratitude every single day? If you are someone who is praying every day and has a good relationship with God, you're used to saying thank you. You're used to showing gratitude. It should be nothing for you to think about all the great things that you have, all the things that God has saved you from, all the things that are working in your life. Even if it's not perfect, no one's life is perfect. No one's marriage is perfect. But we all have to try. If you're not quite comfortable with telling him thank you because maybe you've distanced yourself from your husband so much that even approaching him with something positive would be so strange for you, then start with a note. Say thank you so much for just being a great husband and working so hard for his family. Leave him notes, leave him text messages, voice notes. You can do something kind for him like cook his favorite meal or give him something that he really enjoys. You know your husband. You know what your husband likes. You know what's going to make him smile. You know what's going to make him feel appreciated. But regardless of what you do, it's important that you express the gratitude, that you tell him. You can be out there running around town doing all kinds of things for him and he may not know why. He might just think you're in a great mood. So it's important that you actually verbally or write it down and express it to him. I know we talk about love languages and how people receive love and that kind of thing, but nothing is going to beat him actually knowing why you are doing something. As a finer wife, it is going to be important for you to express to him that you appreciate all the sacrifices that he makes for this family. There are also some things, honey, that you absolutely should not do as a finer wife in terms of respect, like comparing him to other men. Oh, this one really does hurt. If you tell him things like, well, you know, this person's man got her a car, or if you compare him to someone in your family, if you say something like, well, my father always washes my car by hand, and you don't even do that for me. All of that is very hurtful and it's disrespectful. Don't compare him to other men in any way, shape, or form. He is unique just like you are. And if there are issues or things that you want, then it needs to be worked out in a way that is respectful. It's also important that you don't criticize him, that you don't tell him how much he sucks, how stupid he is, how lazy he is, all the things that you don't like about him. Or if you are doing things like putting him down in front of other people, embarrassing him. Men cannot stand to be embarrassed. And you'll notice, babe, that if you start to do this, he's not going to want you around him. And he's definitely not going to want you around his friends. Why risk that? You know, men don't allow other men to disrespect them. It's even worse to have the person who says that they love you, the person that you sacrifice for, you work hard for, to disrespect you, to criticize you, to down talk you, to embarrass you in front of other people. And I know that this is something that you may not even be doing on purpose. You might just be a social person who enjoys having fun, cracking jokes, and you crack the wrong joke. Your husband shouldn't be the laughing stock of the group. He should be the one you're building up around other people. And it's not funny, even if he laughs. I promise you, he's not okay with that. Don't make fun of his accent. Don't make fun of the way he walks. Don't make fun of his clothing. Don't talk about him negatively at all, even if it's just for joke. As a finer wife, it's also important for you to surround yourselves with women who want to be finer wives, not women who criticize and down talk their husbands. You can't be double-minded. You can't talk bad about your husband, call him all kinds of nasty, horrible names, and then pray that God blesses your marriage and changes him. How are you helping that, babe? How are you helping him by speaking poorly about him? When you associate yourself with women who do not respect their husbands, you start to pick up on that. You start to get comfortable thinking it's okay to do that, and you don't want it. As a finer wife, you're going to have to be more careful about who you're around, what they say, because that is going to influence your marriage. And you cannot risk anyone influencing your marriage for the worse. Another way to show respect to your husband is when he asks you to do something and you agree upon it, to actually do it. Don't drag your feet to do it. Don't go back and forth after you've agreed on something. And don't blatantly do something completely different than what you've already agreed on. All of those things question his leadership in the home. It shows that there's division in the home. It shows deceitfulness, especially if you've agreed to something and then you do your own thing. It also challenges his position as the leader of the home. And we do not want that, because that is outside of God's design. If, of course, you don't agree with it or there's issues with it, then have that conversation. But once something is said to be done and it's your responsibility, actually follow through with it without dragging your feet. That shows that you respect him, you respect the decisions that he makes, and you respect the marriage enough to do your part in helping it to flow. I actually have a few more things I want to talk about in terms of respect, but I don't want this video to be too long, so I'll leave you with one last bit. Keep your conversations private. If your husband confides in you, which is very difficult for men to do, but if you've built that trust within him because you are a finer wife who brings femininity into the home, you've allowed him to feel safe and secure in talking to you and in opening up about work, about family problems, about anything that's on his mind. When he shares something private with you, Do not tell your mama. Don't tell your best friend. It doesn't matter if you know this person's not going to say anything. Don't share it. That person could share the information. They could bring it up to him. God forbid anything bad happens in your marriage. Those things will be remembered. Do not share, especially concerning things that he has asked you not to share. But even if he doesn't say, oh, don't tell anyone this, he expects that you will be quiet about the things that he has confided in you. Your marriage is sacred. It is too important to risk through gossip. I want you to begin to look within. Pray. Pray for your husband and pray for yourself and ask God to highlight the areas that you need to change in. If you don't know how you're being disrespectful, ask God to start showing you, and he will. And you may feel so bad because you didn't mean to, but at least now you'll know and you can work on being a finer wife. The final tip I have for you today, my love, in terms of learning how to be a finer wife, is emotional regulation. Learning how to take your thoughts into captivity, how to cast down imaginations, and how to manage the way that you behave. Your emotions are the number one place the enemy is going to try to attack in order to bring things into your mind that are not really there, in order to make things bigger than they really are, to tell you things that are going on that actually aren't, and cause you to behave in ways that are going to tear down your own home. As women, we are more emotionally driven. Not to say men are not emotional or do not have emotions. We as women are just more driven by them. So we have to be more careful. We have to spend more time learning about ourselves, learning about our triggers, and spending time with God so that he can help you. You can walk in the Spirit. The Holy Spirit can help you to manage yourself. This is the one area where most women have regrets, because maybe they blew up in a fight and maybe their husband left them. Maybe they spoke too soon and got themselves into a bind. Maybe they embarrassed themselves or embarrassed him because they had emotional outbursts in public. And of course, I've heard many women tell me that they lost their fiancés. They were about to get married, but they messed up because they did something that just was the last straw in terms of their emotions, and he left. This is very common because men are not built to put up with constant emotional turmoil from you, especially if you're not self-aware and you're not able to regulate yourself. I do have a video in my playlist, A Feminine Impression, about your emotions and regulating them. So I encourage you to watch that video so you can start thinking about some of the things that you've maybe never thought about. Now, some ways that you can help yourself to be a finer wife in terms of managing your emotions as it relates to your husband specifically is by understanding his role, understanding the demands that he has, and understanding his life. Remember, men have a burden put on them by God, not by you, by God, to be providers, to go out into the world, make a living, and take care of their family. Even the ones that are not doing that, it doesn't mean that they don't have a burning fire inside of them, letting them know they should be. Okay, that's something that they have to deal with. If you have a husband who is doing those things, take that into consideration. Even if you work, you don't have the same burden because that is something that's put on him by God. So understanding that will help you to be able to at least know that certain things are not worth talking about. They're not worth fighting about. They're not worth complaining about. Are you really choosing your battles? Should you even be battling? That is something you have to think about. A lot of times we have to give the benefit of the doubt. If there's something that you're suspecting and you want to accuse him of it, if you are wrong, that is going to spiral a whole nother situation that you're going to have to deal with. So taking your time to think through things before addressing them, learning timing, learning when is a good time to approach him about something. Do you know that he has a huge meeting today and you want to bring up something that you've been upset about since Monday? That could seriously impact how he performs in that meeting. Having this unnecessary stress on him, you could have waited until the end of the day to bring that up. So considering him, putting him before yourself. I know this isn't easy. I know that there are so many times where you might feel like it's not fair, like he doesn't have to deal with things you have to deal with, or that you have a load that he doesn't have, and all these things come up, and I understand that. But marriage does require a certain level of maturity and sacrifice, because it really is never going to just be super easy. You're going to have to rely and lean on God to empower you and strengthen you and help keep your mind in a positive and good track. So find other ways to be able to release your emotions. Do things like journaling. Take some time and read. Go out and take a walk. Exercise. Go to the gym. Do things that are going to relax you, to reset you, to rejuvenate you. Most importantly, pray. Pray every single day for your husband. Pray for your family. Pray for yourself. Prayer is the most important thing you could ever do, and things will begin to shift. People will try and do everything else first. Pray first. Do something different than you normally do and watch what happens. Don't allow resentment to start building and building and building and building until you explode. Do not let the sun go down on your anger. Don't sleep on it and then wake up the next day angry still. Remember that God himself does this for you every single day. Every day his mercies are new for you. He washes away yesterday and gives you a brand new beginning every single day. If he can do that for you, you can do that for your husband. It is a moment-by-moment decision that you are going to behave in a certain way, because that is what God expects from you. That is how you become a finer wife. That is what he needs from you. And that is what your children are also watching and copying. If you are a child of the Most High God, then you are called to love your enemies. People who don't even like you, people who wish you harm and want to hurt you, you are called to love them. Why can't you love your own husband? Why can't you forgive your own husband? That is something to pray about. That is something to work on and think about. And you don't have to do it alone. There are marriage groups at churches that you can be with other women and start to realize that a lot of your issues are not as big as you thought they were, or they're very normal. Everyone's kind of dealing with the same old thing. You can go to marriage retreats with your husband where you can be rejuvenated and you can hash out different things that are going on in your marriage, and you can be strengthened and renewed. You are not alone in your marriage. Even if you feel like you are, God is there. He loves you so much, and he wants your marriage to work out. Spend time praying, spend time fasting, spend time thinking about ways that you can change things about your life, things about your marriage, things about yourself, and you will start to see how all of these seeds you're planting are going to bloom. God will never leave you, and he will never forsake you. He is always near, and he is close to the brokenhearted. If you've suffered all of these things in your marriage and you just want renewal, God is there. He is listening. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all of these things will be added on to you. As a finer wife, my dear, you love your king in heaven, and you love and respect your king here on earth. I love you all so much, and I thank you for being here. I thank you for staying and listening to all of this information. As difficult as some of it is, it will be well with you. Things will begin to change when you start implementing these things into your life and you seek God and his comfort. Thank you for all of the wonderful comments and the sweet words that you've left me. Thank you for all of the wonderful messages I've been getting about how this content is opening your eyes, how your marriage is starting to shift, how you're becoming awakened to your role in your marriage, and you're being renewed and restored. Make sure to follow me on my Instagram page, A Feminine Impression, for more feminine content, and listen to my podcast, A Feminine Impression. Until next time, my loves, in all things you do, make a feminine impression. May God bless you and keep you. Mwah. Bye-bye.